I come from a family of matriarchs, a family of women. And so, to say I come from a family of matriarchs is to say that I come from a family of strong women. I mean, everyone was the matriarch. Everyone was the top dog in some way or another, in some aspect of our family life or another. A very strong great-grandmother, a strong grandmother, a strong aunt who raised me in tandem with my mother, who was a single mother in large portions of my childhood. And so all of those women together mothered me in ways that, I think of as a collective. But my own mother, had me when she was very young. She was 18. She was married at 16. She's from Compton, California. I'm the oldest of 5. And she really instilled in me a sense of possibility and wonder and exploring. I think that she was constantly exploring herself at a young age and trying to kind of move herself forward in life. And so I saw this kind of constant striving for better, for more, for not more in the material sense, but more in a sense of satisfaction with where she was. And so that's something that was a seed that she planted in me that I think has carried me through numerous careers. To be able to say, I was a publicist at first, and then I became a filmmaker, and I'm a filmmaker, but I also distribute films, and I might make these kind of films, but I'm also interested in this kind of thing. Within my filmmaking, to make narratives, docs, shorts, now getting into VR, virtual reality, just any way to tell a story. I can trace all that back to my mom and her constant striving for more.
I have a word. There's no words behind.
She always gave me very grounded advice that I took to heart and kind of imbibed like food or like drink. I guess you imbibe drink. Nourished me like food, fueled me. Her words are very energetic. Her favorite thing to say, my mom, is treat others like you'd like to be treated. She always says that since I was a little girl. And so that was just something that, I carry onto my sets with me, carry into my corporate life, certainly my personal life, my love life, in my life, always trying to put the person that I'm relating to ahead of myself in a way that doesn't diminish me, in a way that actually enlarges me. And so that's a fine balance. It's something that you have to learn because you can get taken advantage of. But there's a way to do it where you're actually getting more than you're giving when you allow another person to kind of be first. And so that's a direct lesson from my mom. I think so many people, around this country have families that take different forms, and extended family, and the people who mother us who might not be our biological mother become very important and loom large. And for me, it was certainly, teachers and family friends that I can think of, but, my grandmother and my Aunt Denise, who's since passed away, were very formative for me. My first film, I Will Follow, was about my relationship with my Aunt Denise and, all of the things that she taught me, whereas my mother was very concerned with my day-to-day nourishment and, food and shelter and education. My aunt was able to be kind of like the color man, like to be able to kind of be Flavor Flav to my mom's Chuck D, like, go Ava, you know what I mean, with things that might be a little more fun. So she gave me my love of film, which is, one of the big loves of my life. It's the way that I communicate, articulate, the way that I express myself, the way that I dream is in film. And so that was through my aunt, going to movies with my aunt and her introducing me to my first films and giving me a language for expression through cinema. She gave me that. And so I think, when we look at who mothers us and who are the people who kind of are our foundation, it really is more of a patchwork quilt than a blanket. It does truly take a village, and I experienced that with my family. It's beautiful. Selma is making people interested in previous work, which is lovely. My Mic Sounds Nice, which is a documentary that I did on women in hip hop, isn't widely available, so a lot of people haven't seen that. It was made for television, and so it's only if that network decides to air it does it play. There's still some jewels in there, I think. The women that I was able to interview there, talking about the perspective of being a woman artist within the culture of hip hop and the business of hip hop.
Females don't get as much exposure and as much perks as the guys.
some really enlightening stuff that goes beyond that particular moment and speaks to the industry at large, our culture at large.
And how they change music, how they open the doors to make it even available for artists and women like myself to even be involved.
You know, people are becoming familiar with a couple of short films that I did that I really like, The Door and Say Yes. They're silent films that I did, driven by music a couple of years ago, that have strong women protagonists that have something to say about our relationship to men, our relationship to each other as women, about friendship, about sisterhood. Mostly men come up to me talking about this documentary I did on ESPN called Venus Versus, because it's a 30 for 30. If a man's coming up to me, a certain guy, it's interesting now that I've made a few things, when someone comes up and says, I really like, and I try to guess what it's gonna be based on who they are. And sometimes it's fun when it's the exact opposite thing that you think it's gonna be. I mean, it's the power of film, it's the power of the filmed image, you know. All kinds of things relate to to wherever we are at that moment, you know, whatever your family legacy plus whatever you ate for breakfast that morning equals how you end up when you're in the chair at the movies. And that's never the same for everyone. And so the films and the images work on people in different ways, and that's what, you know, a gift as a filmmaker, to be able to hear what people like about something, because it's always different. You know, this is my TV year. I said I was going to dedicate a year to TV after Selma. TV right now is the place that is showcasing diverse stories by diverse storytellers. TV is now, you know, the premium place for auteurs and folks that want to write, direct, create, and have some autonomy and some freedom in the stories that they tell. And so that's the place for me right now. So I said I was going to dedicate a year to TV. I'm doing a couple of series. One that I'm doing for OWN, Oprah Winfrey's network. The other that I'm doing for CBS. Both have Black women leads, being, you know, the badass queens that we are. It's just what it is. And so you got to make shows about it. So that's what it's about. Two very different shows. One's called, one's about a freedom fighter, a crime fighter who's always kind of digging for justice, and the other is a story of a woman who's remaking her life and trying to find meaning in the everyday. And I think, you know, both of them are fascinating, and they hopefully will add kind of new facets to, you know, the jewel that we are as folks like Shonda Rhimes and Marbach Akil and Debbie Allen and Issa Rae, and, you know, all of these amazing storytellers continue to, you know, just illuminate the jewels that we are, the gems that we are. It's each person takes a piece of it to shape it, you know, and folks working together will get us there, so we can shine brighter. I mean, it's tough. I would say Sojourner Truth comes to mind, Fannie Lou Hamer comes to mind, freedom fighters come to mind. You know, certainly artists, but, you know, I feel like in so many ways they live on through their work, that, you know, you meet them through their work, so you don't necessarily need to meet them again. But if there was someone I wanted to meet or engage with, you know, it would be, you know, some of these women who, you know, left behind their work is history. Their work is not poems, their work is not movies, their work is not anything I can experience now. Their work is the fact that I can sit here. You know what I mean? And so to be able to engage with that and to, you know, delve into the minds, some of these great minds, would be really cool. I think in knowing her, as we all do from growing up with Oprah, you think of her as a certain kind of person. I think there's a certain access that I've had to her that's solidified that in ways that I didn't think that were possible, just because the kind of person she is real times 100, and it's so consistent.
Oh my God, can we talk about Ava DuVernay?
A lot of times we, in this business, we get to meet our heroes, get to meet people that we really admire. You get to meet Beyonce, you get to meet Michelle Obama. And they're lovely people, but you may not be able to be around them in a consistent way to really understand who they are behind the persona. I've had the opportunity to do that with Oprah Winfrey, and I can say it is a consistency and a level of womanhood and air of dignity and an energy of compassion and solidarity with people that goes beyond even what you see. And so for someone that you just see walking greatness all the time, to really understand up close and personal that it's even more than what I thought is, it's not inspiration, it's like new chemistry. She's really enlarged me in the way that I've been able to observe her being more than even what I thought she was. It's hard to articulate, but it certainly has served as like a guiding light, like a shining star that I'm following, and a star in the sense of light, not a star in the sense of celebrity, and that's really what she's become for me. And so what a joy. It took a while for me to become comfortable with her. For the first year, I was just really freaked out. It's like, that's Oprah Winfrey, and she's looking at me in my face, asking me questions. And she knows my name, and she wants answers. You know what I mean? It's like, oh Lord. And I just know I was weird around her. I was awkward. I was dropping stuff. I wasn't being articulate. I was just a hot mess. You know, for like a year, really bad. And yeah, you know, as we started working on Selma and starting to get to know each other more, there was one particular, you know, conversation and circumstance that was very trying for me, that she was able to help me through in a way that went beyond any kind of counsel I'd had before. It was very soulful. It was very much being kind of entranced in the warmth of sisterhood that women know what that is. And to be able to kind of let that be a seed for a relationship that's really blossoming into one of the most important ones in my life is just, it's a joy, truly. And it's really added to who I am. So yeah, lots of long conversations and lots of short conversations and just lots of communication and connection with her is really the basis for our friendship. She said one thing to me, I don't know. She says so many great, I mean, it's just pearls dropping like rain. You're like, yo, I can't catch them all. Like, say that again? You know, it's just so good. I mean, she's studied every spiritual leader. Not only studied them, she met them, she sat with them. You know what I mean? Like think of, you know, all of the people that she sat with, the stories from real people, human stories that she's investigated and reported on and interviewed. I mean, just all that is in her head and in her heart, and she shares it with you. And sometimes it's challenging for me to grab it all. But one thing she said to me that really sunk in deep and really changed my life. She said, I was going through a challenge, really tough challenge, and she said, this is not happening to you, this is happening for you. This bad thing that's happening is not happening to you, it's happening for you. You're not the victim of it, you're the beneficiary of it. And to think about anything that's going, any struggle, any issue, any personal crisis from the point of view of this is in my path for a reason, changes the dynamic of the way that you are in the situation and allows you to see there is going to be a light there somewhere. And also, it's not just everything's going to work out, you know what I mean? It is challenge yourself to analyze this moment and figure out what is really going on. And that, you know, requires a stamina and a dignity and a presence of mind that takes you out of the woe is me moment and empowers you. Every day I say to myself in some instance, at some level or another, this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And you know, I think back to times when I was nursing my aunt in the last days of her life, you know, with breast cancer, and just being a caregiver and thinking at that time, why is this happening to us? You know, to be able to look back at those hard times and reassess them from the point of view of this wasn't happening to us, it was happening for us. I see the beautiful moments we were able to share, the things we were able to say to each other in her last days that we had never said before, the gifts that we were able to give each other through bonding, through connection, through reflection, to embrace cancer and a long dying as a blessing in that it wasn't quick and we were able to say everything we wanted to say. Just to be able to look at any instance from a place of education and nourishment as opposed to a deficit. is one of the things that Oprah taught me and gave me, and it was a huge gift.
We have no alternative but to keep moving with determination. We've gone too far now to turn back. And in a real sense, we are moving and we cannot afford to stop because Alabama and because our nation has a date with destiny.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be
I just, moments before I sat down here, watched the president give one of the most dazzling, electrifying speeches I've ever heard him give, and he's one of the best speech giver I've heard other than King.
It is a rare honor in this life to follow one of your heroes. And John Lewis is one of my heroes.
One man, one vote is an African rock. It is our tool. It must be ours.
This speech at the base of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, where I shot Selma, where my father is from Montgomery, Alabama, just miles away. My mother works in Selma to this day. Every day she goes to work in Selma and crosses that bridge.
In one afternoon, 50 years ago, so much of our turbulent history, the stain of slavery and anguish of civil war, the yoke of segregation and tyranny of Jim Crow, the death of 4 little girls in Birmingham, the dream of the Baptist preacher, all that history met on this bridge.
The bridge that, in 2015 is still named after Edmund Pettus, one of the grand dragons of the KKK in the area. And that you have to actually have people in that community who, support it continuing to be named that. To see the presidential motorcade go over the Selma Bridge and to hear the speech that he gave, and to know that people are watching it with a different context than what they might have had before our film. That King doesn't feel antiquated in a marble statue. That you know who John Lewis is beyond the fact that he's the congressman from Atlanta. You know who he is because you were able to see him as a young man be beaten and bloodied on the bridge through a film. The fact that you have a sense of the fact that these were radicals, not homogenized I have a dreamers, but radical revolutionaries in the way that we tried to present them and in the way that I understood them to be.
If every new voter suppression law was struck down today, we would still have here in America one of the lowest voting rates among free peoples. 50 years ago, registering to vote here in Selma and much of the South meant guessing the number of jelly beans in a jar, the number of bubbles on a bar of soap. It meant risking your dignity and sometimes your life. What's our excuse today for not voting? How do we so casually discard the right for which so many fought? How do we so fully give away our power, our voice in shaping America's future? Why are we pointing to somebody else when we could take the time just to go to the polling places?
The fact that some of those ideas might come into your mind when someone says you're going down to Selma or what's happening or Selma's 50 or you hear the president's speech is, and because it has happened, it's interesting to have to articulate it right now on camera, but it is bigger and more meaningful and more of a jewel in my life than any statue could have been. I know what I thought of King before I started researching Selma and thinking about how I could present him on film as the first filmmaker to make a film with King at the center. You know what I mean? what that responsibility was and how that was going to be king for a generation of people. They were going to understand him based on this film. And what image of him was I going to present? And trying to present as true an image to what I was able to research and find as possible, which was he was a lot more than I Have a Dream. The fact that that image now connects so linearly, so directly to activists and revolutionaries on the ground now in Ferguson and other places proves that this is completely beyond us, that this is something that's meant to be. The timing of it, the film, Ferguson, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, like all of the things that are happening that is making America, the world, stand up and not just feel injustice, but try to articulate and express and advocate and execute for change. I mean, who cares about the rest? You know what I mean? Like this is our life. This is our legacy. This is what it's about. And so to have a small part of it as an artist, we're a very small part. To have a small part of it and for our art to be able to do what art does, which is move you in a certain direction, and for that movement to be connected with a real literal movement on the ground is all I need, really. At that time, during the civil rights movement, we think of it as the civil rights movement and King and I Have a Dream. But SCLC was one of many organizations. You had SNCC, you had CORE, you had, Pullman Porters, you had NAACP, you had the Urban League, they were all around at that time. And just like we have Black Lives Matter and Dream Defenders and Color of Change. And I mean, it was not a one leader movement. It's been homogenized and fantasized and fed to us and packaged to us and commercialized to be that, but that was never what it was. Yes, there was one dynamic leader who rose above the rest. But, he was being fed by great minds from a whole bunch of places. There were the Panthers eventually. There was the Black Power movement. There was Brown involvement. There was international involvement. There was a lot of, King had been to the continent. You know what I mean? King had Nkrumah on his shelf. You know what I mean? King, King was, he was doing more than dreaming. He really was. And so if Selma, our film, could do anything, it was to show that the ideas and the ideology and the strategy and the tactics were more advanced than a 4-word catchphrase, that we don't reduce people, and hopefully people don't reduce the movement that's happening now. The civil rights movement was a 13-year-long movement. I hear people now saying, oh, they're just marching, what is it going to do? Well, people marching in Ferguson got the Department of Justice to research a report that's now opened eyes and pulled back the lid on the very thing that America's been trying to make us think we're crazy for saying. And that's a big step, and a movement is steps, a series of steps. And so I am hopeful and happy to be a part of this time. Aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky to be alive right now and to have something to say and have something to do and to know how to do it, because we've seen people do it before.
What happens when a man stands up, says enough is enough?
Eyes on the prize, partner.
Now the war is not over.
White, black, and otherwise. We need you to stand with us.
I heard about our brothers and sisters struggling and couldn't just stand by.
Cry glory.
Glory, hallelujah.
Glory.
Our freedom will soon be upon us. His truth is marching on.